Mainline Engines is the 21st book of the Railway series, and was first published in 1966. It was written by the series creator Wilbert Awdry, and illustrated by Mr. and Mrs. Peter Edwards. 20 years later, all 4 of its short stories were adapted into 4 short episodes of Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends. How faithful were these adaptations? Let's see if we can spot the differences. The first story introduces 2 new characters into the series, Bill and Ben, the twin tank engines, who deliver trucks containing china clay from the quarry to the harbour. During the next scene, Bill and Ben are side by side, a noticeable difference from the book's illustration, as they were originally facing each other on opposite tracks. During Bill and Ben's discussion about what a diesel crossed with a disease is, Ben blames Bill for attracting the Diseasel due to him having a cough. Ben protests, saying his fireman cleaned the cough out of his smoke box, but Bill insists, saying this then caused the fireman to sneasel. This extra dialogue was not added to the episode.
Coughs and sneezels spread diseasels. Who had a cough in his smoke box yesterday? It's your fault the Diseasel came. It isn't. It is.
The drivers claim to remove Bill and Ben's name and number plates before going after the diesel, but the twins do not have numbers. However, they do in the Railway series, which are located in the small gap between their faces and Brendan Bay logos. In the episode, there is a montage of Bill and Ben leaving the port and travelling to a yard past Edward Station. In the book, the journey wouldn't have been very long, as the yard seems to be located at just another area of the harbour.
Do you mind? Yes,
said Bill.
I do. I want my trucks, please. These are mine,
said the Diesel.
Go away.
Although his shape and main colours are the same, Boko the Diesel's face layout is quite different to the one he was given in the TV series. In the episode, the twins make the Diesel dizzy by going back and forth on both sides of Boko, which naturally baffles him, as he only thought there was one of them. In the book, the twins seem to be going around in a sort of circle.
Bill and Ben, why are you playing here? We're not playing,
protested Bill.
We're rescuing trucks,
squeaked Ben.
Even you don't come in our yard without asking, and you only take the trucks we give you. This Diseasel didn't even ask. He just took the lot. There is no cause to be rude,
said Edward severely.
This engine is a Metropolitan Vickers Diesel Electric Type 2.
The next story was not adapted until Series 3 of Thomas and Friends in 1992. The original story began straight after the events of the previous story, with Boko shunting Bill and Ben's trucks and then visiting the shed where he meets and chats to Duck. The episode begins with James saying hello to Trevor the traction engine and the Vickers bees. Boko also says hello, but James storms off as he is prejudiced against diesels. The adaptation then starts to fall into place as Boko meets Duck and James again, though this time at the harbour instead of the shed.
Have they ever played tricks on you? Goodness me, yes, chuckled Duck. Edward is the only one who can keep them in order. I sometimes call them the bees. A good name. They're terrors when they start buzzing around. What's that, Duck? Are you terrified of bees? They're only insects after all, so don't let that buzzbox Diesel tell you different.
A porter named Fred causes the beehive to spill open at the station, for he was going too fast and had to slam on the brakes of his trolley-mobile to avoid colliding with an old woman. In the episode, the porter is not named, he is pushing instead of pulling the trolley, and the elderly lady is not seen. James Fireman, who was about to couple the red engine to his coaches, thinks the bees might sting him, so he rushes into the cab and cowers on the floor, and the driver attempts to swat the bees with a shovel. This does not happen in the episode. In the original illustration of this iconic image, James's nose is not turned red, nor is it said to do so in the narration. The final quarter of the episode involves James and his crew trying various ways to stop the bees from following James. Eventually, they just take the bees home to the vicar's orchard. The vicar visits James at the shed to apologise for the sting, but also teases him about it. James does actually laugh at his comeuppance. The book has quite a different ending, as it is revealed that Boko took over the train James left behind, and it is the other engines who tease the red beehive, which he is naturally very annoyed about.
Buzz, buzz, buzz,
retorted Duck.
The remaining 2 stories were both produced after the Diseasel back in 1986.
It's not fair.
Grumbled Gordon.
What isn't fair?
Asked Edward.
Letting branch-line diesels pull main-line trains? Never mind, Gordon. I'm sure Boko will let you pull his trucks sometimes. That would make it quite fair.
Gordon spluttered.
When describing the mistake that led to Gordon leaving the station before his train was full of passengers and luggage, the narrator talks about the event in the past tense. The next page begins by telling us about Gordon and Edward's schedules for the evening. This is how the sequence starts in the episode, and shows what happened as it happens. Gordon is so embarrassed about leaving before his train was actually ready that he is blushing. In the book's illustration, Gordon's expression doesn't appear to be quite as ashamed as his TV model. After the signalman accidentally sends Edward along the main line and Gordon to the branch line, the Fat Controller has to spend all night sorting out what happened and rescuing the passengers. This is not shown or said to happen in the episode. Gordon is parked at a siding at the harbour for the night. In the book, he appears to be in Edward's yard, the one Bill and Ben met Boko at in the first story. Also, Gordon is asleep when Bill and Ben show up at the harbour, but in the episode, he is awake and, as usual, looking pretentious. Bill and Ben are side by side whilst they tease Gordon, but not in the book, as they each take a track on either side of the big engine, just as they did to Boko in the episode. The twins go on describing humorous ways of disposing of Gordon until Boko arrives. In the episode, no extra discussion between the two is mentioned, as the big diesel enters the yard just after Gordon makes his first protest.
It's just a pile of old iron, which we'd better take to the scrapyard. No, Bill, this lot's useless for scrap. We'll take it to the harbour and dump it in the sea.
The episode starts with Bertie the bus transporting some visitors to the station for Edward to take them to the China Clay Works. Struggling to pull the heavy train, he is mocked by Gordon, James and Henry. In the book, the story begins directly after the events of Wrong Road, as Edward tells off Bill and Ben for teasing Gordon, but also tells Gordon he had it coming. According to the illustration, Gordon, James and Henry's criticism of Edward's weaknesses, and Duck and Boko criticising them for such criticisms, happens at the engine's shed after Edward has already left.
Just pathetic,
Grunted Gordon.
He should give up and be preserved before it's too late. Shut up!
Burst out Duck.
Edward's better than any of you. You're right, Duck,
Said Boko.
Edward's old, but he'll surprise us all.
Edward's shape is severely damaged when a crank pin breaks, causing his side rod to batter his frame. Even the glass pane of his cab is cracked. The level of damage is far less extreme in the episode. Throughout this sequence, it is raining. In the episode, although the sounds of a rainy, windy storm can be heard, there is no water falling from the sky. Edward is reversed to a more level part of the line to help with his start. This does not happen in the episode. When Edward does manage to start pulling the train again in the book, his fireman is sitting on his engine's buffers, sprinkling sand onto the rails. In the episode, this happens before Edward's injury, only the fireman was standing, not crouching, and using a bucket, not a watering can. Also, the illustration shows Edward has his tongue out, which was not included for the model's face in this scene.
I've done it! I've done it!
Puffed Edward.
Sir Topham Hatt is just about to shout at Edward for being so late when the passengers from the Blue Engine's train cheer Edward and his crew for getting through the dilemma. In the book, the Fat Controller is holding his top hat, which appears to be dented. This was likely due to it being accidentally knocked off and trod on while the passengers pushed past him to thank Edward, but the narrator doesn't clarify this. The episode ends here with Edward going for a well-deserved rest to the sounds of his fellow engine's respect. But the book has one final page where we are told that Boko takes over Edward's branch line while he is being mended. Donald and Douglas, who became blue in the railway series, did not trust the big diesel at first, but eventually accept him as a part of the island of Sodor's family.
For a diesel, Yon Bucco's nae such a bad sort of engine.